Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Gold Forum Americas is brought to you by Metalla Royalty and Streaming.
Few gold exploration companies are resonating in the market. One of those has seen its share price more than double this year, and that is Collective Mining. This is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at the Gold Forum Americas in Colorado Springs. And joining me this morning is Ari Sussman, Executive Chair, to tell me more about it. Ari, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to our conversation, Paul.
Excellent. Ari, Collective, as I mentioned, is one of the handful of exploration stocks that the market has responded to over the past year or so with your Apollo discovery in Caldas, Colombia. It's a situation you've been in before. What is your secret sauce?
Great geologists, plain and simple. I mean, my model has always been to try and employ the best minds in the industry and more than one of them and bring them together to collaborate on ideas. And we bring the international, been there, done that, strategists in geology and dump their brains into our local Colombian team. And the result has been very successful. We're good at identifying early stage opportunities.
Okay, so let's talk about Apollo and why is it causing such excitement?
Well, look, Apollo was one of 8 targets we generated at the Guayabales target, and the business model was to try and systematically drill test all 8. So far, we've been through 5 with the drill, and we've hit on 4. We're currently drilling 2 other ones as well presently. Hopefully they'll be good. Apollo is the flagship, okay? That is the flagship discovery. Why it is so good is it is a porphyry system that has been brecciated and then overprinted by late-stage high-grade porphyry veins. So you have the copper, low-grade gold mineralization pumping into the breccia, and then you have the late-stage high-grade gold silver veins overprinting. And when you mix the soup bowl together, you get a very high-grade combination over big, bulky intercepts.
Okay, I did a site visit to Apollo this year, which you kindly arranged for me. And it was very evident there, your comments earlier about the local geologist being, part of the secret sauce, because during that visit, it was explained that this was a discovery made by the local geologists that really had to sort of work hard to convince your geological consultants that this was a target worth drilling. And obviously the proof is in the pudding. The results and the intercepts have been quite spectacular.
Absolutely. Look, our team on the ground, Colombian team, is so talented, and we've got the right matrix of people. You got to look at managing a company like a toolbox. You need to have the right tools in the box to ensure that everything works. And we have the right tools, including excellent hunters. So these are the greenfield explorationists that have the energy to go into the mountainous topography of Colombia, pretty brave effort to climb some of the rocks and some of the hill faces and collect rocks and define targets. But the key is to be ruthless on these things, right? You can't fall in love with a maybe in mining.
Okay, but Guayabales is much more than Apollo. You mentioned you had 8 original targets. More recently, you've been talking about Plutus and ME. What are they and why are they potentially important for the company going forward?
So we believe that Apollo is one of many fingers, of mineralization that will hopefully one day be mined. And as I said at the beginning, we want to drill all 8 targets. So ME and Plutus are currently being drilled, 1 rig on each. First couple holes are completed in each. And they are targets 6 and 7 of 8. Interesting what we're seeing. Obviously, I have no idea until we get assay results, but we definitely have hit mineralization in both. It looks to be more late stage vein related. So that means I would expect gold and silver potentially if the assays corroborate, not much copper in those. But we're onto something in both of those that's worth continuing to drill.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Colombia. The projects in Caldas, which perhaps isn't a very well-known department in Colombia. It's a relatively small department. Most of the gold activity is to the north in Antioquia. Tell us about Caldas and why do you think it's possible to develop a project there?
If you were going to pick a location in Colombia to go mining, we're it. Okay, the reason is threefold. One, we are next door to the famous historical Marmato mine, which has been producing for 500 years. So everybody who's from Caldas has mining in their lineage. Secondly, Caldas has the most universities per capita, the second highest education rate in Colombia, and the second lowest unemployment rate in Colombia. So everyone's employed. It's outdoor industrials, and that's the type of economy it is. Farming, coffee, it's famous for, and mining is part of that equation. And thirdly, security. I mean, Colombia, as you know, Paul, it still has its challenges. It's far better than it was in the 1980s and 90s. Caldas has none of those issues. There is no rebel group operating there. There is no cocaine grown. It is the safest place that one can go in Colombia to operate.
Okay, having a good location is obviously key for future development, but there's also the sort of bigger political aspect in the country. And Colombia has a president who does not seem to be very friendly towards mining, yet some companies are getting their permits. And the president recently appointed a mining minister who is very engaging with the sector. What is the word on the ground?
So, bark and bite, okay? Remember that the president is a left-leaning president. It's the first one in the history of the country. And his voting base, leans left and thinks left. So the bark is we're not loving mining. However, but it's really been focused on coal. The president's very focused on the energy transition. The bite, to me, is things that have happened on the ground. And so we look at the just over 1 year of being in power. South 32 was granted a new mining license, or a mining license extension, for Cerro Matoso. Our direct contiguous neighbor, Aris Mining at Marmato, was granted both a mining license and an environmental license. I believe construction for that mine should start in November. And there is a small rare earth project that was granted, I believe, an open pit and a dredging operation in the far east of the country. And the rumor is there's one more gold mine on the cusp of getting permitted. Let's see if that comes true. So there's been a lot of positive developments. You weigh that against no negatives, as far as permits go. And it seems to still be a very good place and a very efficient place to permit mines.
Okay, it seems that the financing window for many junior explorers has had the shutters put up and now closed this past year or so. Why is there so little equity available in the market for exploration?
Look, there hasn't been a need to really invest in early stage exploration due to other sectors doing extremely well. You couple that with the way the model of banks, around the world are trying to cannibalize their investors into their own products and not in external products, and the recipe is a lack of capital. It's tough out there. I haven't seen it this bad, and I'm thinking back to 2015, 2008, and 2000, 2001. It's worse now. Something will change. If we don't fund explorers, this whole industry is going to go bankrupt because there's going to be no more deposits. And while the private equity / debt lenders have lots of money, if there is not an equity component attached to their business model, they will fail too. So I think we're at a very bleak point. I'm quite excited as a contrarian about it. I think next year will probably be a lot more enjoyable, but it's tough out there, and I think maybe a lot of micro caps should merge with each other.
Over your career, Ari, you've been very successful in raising the money for the projects you've been involved with. After you sold Continental Gold to Zijin Mining in 2020, I asked you what you would have done differently, and you said that when you made your big raise in 2012, you would not have left money on the table. The stock of Collective Mining is now around, let's say, $6 Canadian per share. Are you looking at undertaking a big raise to get multiple years of budget in your treasury?
No, not at the current valuation, and we don't need cash. However, if we get back to a 2011-12 market, and we're trading at really a high valuation, and the ducks are quacking, at that point, we will definitely take all the money we could get. The financing you're talking about at Continental Gold, we raised $86 million, and we had almost double that on the table. It would have been nice to have that during the lean years. It would have carried us right through to the construction of the mine when we would have had to raise the equity for the construction. As
it was, it did carry you through the first part of the lean years very successfully.
Very much so.
Okay. Now, the market would seem to be, the market valuations of juniors are very low at the moment. So it would seem to be a good time for gold producers to acquire them and build out their development pipelines. Yet, you don't see too many transactions taking place. Why do you think that is? And what do you think will change that?
So the mining sector for the past 15 years has lived by the buy high and sell low model, right? It's bizarre, but that's what's going on. That really has to do with the mining sector being in rough shape from the past cycle, loaded with debt and high price acquisitions, and investors saying to large mining companies, pay dividends, buy back your stock, show up your balance sheet, and don't make acquisitions. I think right now, if I was running a producer with good cash on the balance sheet, I would be sprinkling that money around across the board It's a no-brainer move right now. Valuations, as you said, are extremely low. And I think they're so low that even if you're wrong on projects, you're going to be right on the equity in any event, just as the whole industry lifts in the future. So this is a great time. I hope they start doing it. Maybe after this show, some will. We'll see.
Is that sort of toehold equity investments?
That's how I would look at it, because it takes a lot of due diligence for a producer to buy a company. I mean, I went through this with multiple large majors, but toeholds is irrelevant for them on their balance sheet when they're spitting out large amounts of cash flow. Shareholders won't balk at that idea. It won't ruin their earnings, and the upside is great. I mean, I think it's a great investment just to make that, and then you can learn more about these projects.
Okay. What are your hopes and fears for the next 12 months for the company and for the market?
Well, look, we're so excited with our drilling for obvious reasons, and we're going to continue to expand. Geology is like nothing I've ever seen, including previous company. It's project to me seems like it has potential to be bigger than Breccia. Different type of system, but bigger than Breccia. Obviously the fear is that the financing window completely closes indefinitely, and even we won't be able to raise money in 18 or 24 months when we need it. That is on our mind. But other than that, I really just hope the investor interest comes back. This is an exciting industry for speculators. You can compare it in a lot of ways to technology and biotech, where you go from nothing to something overnight based on a discovery. And so we just got to do a better job at generating that interest level and bringing those investors back.
Well, I think collective mining with your Apollo discovery is certainly a step in the right direction. Hopefully the industry can see a few more discoveries like that to reignite investor interest.
Paul, I will say this, in my career, I haven't seen so many discoveries at the same time, maybe since the 1990s anyways, so many at the same time that have 10 million plus ounce potential or equivalent if they're in copper. So it's a really good time for investors if they would just bite a little bit and come on into the space.
Ari Sussman, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Paul. Always nice to chat.
This is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at the Gold Forum Americas in Colorado Springs. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Gold Forum Americas is brought to you by Metalla Royalty and Streaming.